going to be an advantage, but exactly how is it going to change the customer experience? So let's hear more about this from Mr. Kayzad Hiramanek, who is the Chief Operation and Customer Experience Officer at Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. We spoke to Kayzad just a short while back to find out what this presentation will be about. And we discovered that here's what you as an audience can expect. We're going to discover the rise of smart speakers and voice technology and its current and future impact on customer experience. And we're also going to discover how has speech technology made customers more likely to switch services. Kayzad, the audience is captive. We all are keen to know what you have to say about voice technology, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Danny. And, thank you very much to the Voice Tech Summit for having me. It's a pleasure to join this event and, present to this great audience. And, what I'm going to basically be talking about is more in terms of how customers' preferences have changed, considering this lockdown and the fact that there has been limited human contact in the past 4 or 5 months with typically customers locked into their homes and with limited mobility, and more importantly, having limited access to other human service reps. So, if I were to look at just the insurance industry, it is a rather human touch heavy industry in terms of the fact that, there are intermediaries. So it is largely an intermediated business. And with the intermediaries in play, they obviously want to have that human connect to, kind of work with customers and their families and talk to them about, the long-term protection and responsibility of the main family member towards his loved ones. So that being said, with the lockdown happening and, physical contact being out of question, the voice channels have actually come back into play quite, voraciously. And that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through our experience with voice in the last 5 months, as well as, our overall strategy on voice and, voice assistance as a piece. Because like it or not, Indians are a social audience and they do like to interact with other human beings, whether physically or virtually. So that being said, I'm going to actually present my slides now, where I'm going to talk about the entire changing the entire customer experience going forward. So if I were to just look at my first slide, if you really think about it, the whole business of customer experience basically rests on 3 E's, which is the experience you provide versus the expectation of the customer, and what are the enablers to provide that experience. So whether you like it or not, person-to-person voice and video communication is on the rise. That is the next normal now. People aren't going to be meeting another, unknown person that easily. And therefore, customers, because they've kind of, become a lot more self-empowered and a lot more demanding, they are also becoming a little intolerant of, your typical service levels of, 2 hours, 4 hours, 24 hours. Because they have nothing to do and they're sitting at home, they expect immediate answers, which is why, some of the virtual channels such as, interactive IVRs or virtual assistants are the, a theme of the day. And of course, social media has become big. I mean, in the last 5 months, we've seen a huge rise in people reaching out to senior people within our organization through social media and expecting immediate responses. And, that's something that we've done quite effectively, at least in terms of reaching out to the customer, assuaging his, grievance, and then making sure that we give him an accurate timeline to close things. Customers today now, of course, are expecting all your channels to be, totally omni-channel and, connected, so that everybody speaks in one voice and, the customer doesn't have to repeat himself. But at this point in time, the customer would appreciate organizations and service providers that actually give him a means of, doing his own stuff end to end. So if it means buying an insurance policy, the customer doesn't want a break in the entire journey. He wants to start the process. He wants to compare, different prices and different price points, different, levels of protection or investment, basis which he wants to purchase the policy himself. He similarly wants to service himself, pay his own premiums, check his fund values, make necessary changes to his funds. And, all that has become an absolute necessity considering the fact that human touch will go down over a period of time. So typically, a customer is looking for more knowledgeable and end-to-end journeys from both the virtual as well as the physical touch points of any service provider. That being said, of course, the latest thing in technology and in the entire customer experience and user experience avenues is bots and AI. So typically, organizations which are very heavy on routine transactions, and we are no exception as an organization, because we have a lot of routine transactions in terms of customers wanting to know how to pay, what is their premium value, how do they get their statements, how do they check their portfolios, how do they change their address, or make attach a mandate to their policy so that their premiums are in auto mode. So all this is very, very, steeply being moved towards bot-based servicing, where the customer doesn't necessarily need a human assistance, and as long as the journey is intuitive and doesn't have too many clicks, automatically the customer is more comfortable doing the entire redemption online. That being said, what we prophesize as a philosophy in terms of customer experience in this country is the 3 V's of voice, video, and vernacular. Now, whether you like it or not, India is a social and a people-driven society. We are quite unlike a European or an American audience where people still prefer to do things themselves without interacting with other human beings. We still prefer to talk to human beings, and I'll give you some examples as the slides progress in terms of how we've been able to bring the 3 V's of voice, video, and vernacular into to light. One very important thing in this country especially is that no matter how hard you try, I think the emergent technologies, at least using artificial intelligence or using bots, especially in the vernacular, is still has some distance to go. So that being said, human beings today still rule the roost in terms of the local connect and the local language. Of course, it won't be long before bots do take over, but I still think that we have some distance to go there. Of course, on English, native English, I think the bots have done a fantastic job, and I will also talk to you about how those bots are actually working to our advantage in this lockdown. So here's a classic example of the 3 V's at work in Bajaj Allianz. So what we realized is that over the last 2 or 3 years is that a lot of people come for physical servicing, but don't necessarily need to meet a human being to be serviced for simple queries. So that being said, all we did was put a kiosk at our branches front offices, and we asked customers who had routine queries and didn't want to wait in line to just put on a set of headphones and have a nice private conversation with an agent who was at the other end. As COVID came down, we also realized that now with the branches being out of play, the customers still we saw a huge explosion of users on our secure portal. So basically what we figured is that if those people are coming to the portal and validating themselves through a two-factor authentication, all we needed to do was give access to the customer through that portal to an agent who was still available, and waiting to talk to the customer. So what we've done clearly is we've moved the customer away from physical servicing or having to come to a particular location to doing it from the comfort of his home from his mobile phone. So what has happened is very clearly 50,000 walk-in customers who would have walked into my branches have now moved to iServe, which is my video chat facility. And at the same time, this facility is available across about 12 or 13 languages. And it gives you the same experience of a branch where the agent is fully empowered to take every single service request, and at the same time see the customer to know that she's talking to the right person. So very clearly this is a classic example of 3 V's. You have voice, you have video, and you have the vernacular, and it is a near branch like experience for the customer. The second example I will talk to you about is on our interactive IVR, which is also available in multiple languages. Now, typically Indians do not like to speak to a machine, but that is slowly but surely changing, with the use of interactive bots, etc. So if I were to look at my own call centers, and let's face it, call centers have one typical problem with this, which is the geography in which they operate. So typically you need agents to congregate under a single roof, basis which, the entire business model runs. Now, with the lockdown happening, people weren't able to reach these call centers, right? So the first thing we had to do is actually flexibly move the agent to a work from home model through either a laptop or through his mobile phone, connecting him through the dialer. But still, the latency and the amount of call drops, etc., because you are operating now on public shared networks, created another problem. So basically, what saved the day for us was our interactive IVR, the interactive voice response, where, till about 5 or 6 months ago, I used to have about 30-35% terminations, where people kind of serviced themselves and moved away from the IVR. This has now gone up to 55%. So which should tell you that if your journeys are intuitive and your messaging is clear and you're able to provide end-to-end resolution, people will talk to a machine as well, because they don't really want to wait, or they're not going to wait in an endless queue for an agent and then suffer call drops. So simple services, and even stuff for NRIs, for example. Many NRIs were kind of stuck in their home countries, but they wanted to come to India, but they still wanted to know whether their policies were intact, what was the status, etc., because many of them still prefer to have Indian insurance cover because it's far cheaper than the exorbitant expenses overseas. So we also had an NRI helpline that ran 24/7 from the comfort of the agent's home. So to that extent, voice technology is extremely scalable. It is extremely now geography agnostic. And the beauty of this is that now that you've destroyed the myth of the call center having to be in a particular location, it also opens avenues for employing people in any part of the country to work from their home. And you have all the advantages of a much cheaper agent who can offer you all the services of a vernacular from a much lower cost location. So which is great news again from a voice servicing perspective for service providers like us, where we have 3.5 crore customers or 35 million customers live spread all across the subcontinent. Now, this is another very interesting use case that we've adopted on virtual voice assistants, where because of the fact that, typically Indians are not very, very prompt paymasters, so our payment morale still needs a lot of work. And largely insurance policies, because they are kind of sold and not necessarily bought through the intermediary channel, customers tend to, need to be motivated to pay their premiums. Now, obviously, with the lockdown and call center agents not being able to log in from home or facing their own capacity issues, these virtual voice assistants or typically interactive bots really save the day for us in terms of typically reminder calling, or getting customers to update their bank details or their personal contact details with us on a phone call, because all these are of course recorded. And it makes it a lot easier for us, especially for calling on weekends, calling longer hours, because customers typically tend to answer you more towards the evenings rather than the mornings when they are busy with their housework or their office work, so people still do work from their homes. So that being said, the interactive voice bots were a huge fillip for us in terms of reaching customers, basis their ability to constantly dial out, their ability to be near human-like in terms of NLP. Okay, so actually understanding if a customer spoke half English, half Hindi, and still being able to give him a coherent answer, and at the same time provide a fantastic resolution for the customer and for us. Now, some of the future things that we are planning to do, and we've been working on for some time, is how do we further pervade the voice assistants ecosystem into our customers' homes. So stuff like Alexa or Google Assistant. These are typically compatible with your core systems today, and they can easily fetch data and give coherent answers to customers wherever they are. So whether they're in the comfort of their home or they're driving in their car. And this is actually going to be big business, because the more and more we are observing in trends is that our customers are moving away from physical interaction to more digital interaction. So if I were to just look at the kind of customers that have moved, 3 years ago, 12 lakh customers, so 1.2 million customers walked into my branches. Last year, which ended on 31st of March, the financial year, we had just about 300,000 or 3 lakh customers. So that itself should tell you that customers are perfectly okay with operating on digital means, as long as they have a near human experience and they are able to complete their transactions end to end. And you can also see that the usage of voice assistants in India has grown by approximately 40% in the last 1 year, which should tell you that the business case seems to be sustainable and holds true for many Indian customers and service providers. Now, the last point that I want to actually pick up is on speech analysis, and this is something that we've kind of played with for a bit. We didn't really succeed, I think, a couple of years ago, but it is one of those things that as NLP becomes more and more of a science, the more we are going to be able to see good quality speech transcription to text. When that happens, and there are some very good use cases in this summit itself who kind of reached out to me, and thank you so much for reaching out, because these are precisely the type of services that we are looking out for. This will actually ring the end bell for a lot of the traditional way of doing call audits and agent quality recognition. So once speech to text across multiple languages becomes the flavor, it will be very easy to figure out what are the kind of keywords that customers are using. How do we measure sentiment of the customer basis, which our scripts can be changed on the fly? How do we ensure service recovery on calls basis flags that the voice recognition is actually giving you? How do we know that what are some of the keywords that we are using which is actually affecting the customer negatively? So a lot of business cases are available, especially in customer facing processes for the entire speech and sentiment analysis. In my opinion, I don't think many people are there yet. We are definitely not there. We've tried, we've tinkered around with it, but we've not really succeeded. So if there are some of you who actually have good quality business cases, and do feel free to reach out. We will be happy to take a look and maybe do a pilot with you. That being said, if you were to just look at the future of customer interaction in this country, very clearly voice tech is going to define it. So in terms of where organizations were basically responding to customers, organizations are now going to be able to capture deep insight through voice analysis, text analysis, and be able to contextualize conversations with customers. And that customer insight is invaluable, because the more your customer is satisfied with the fact that you are able to identify him and personalize your communication to him, I think that is the key to winning the overall customer experience battle in a crowded marketplace. So from customer data, of course, to customer delight, like I told you, if you can provide first call resolution, you can build relationships and drive retention, and using that retention drive upsell, cross sell opportunities. That is really customer delight, because the customer is actually rewarding you for knowing him and servicing him to the best of your abilities and to the best of his requirements. From fast to instant, of course, voice is one of those channels which requires instant responses, because a customer still believes that it is human or near human, and therefore you cannot have long gaps and long redundancy between sentences. So the technology which provides a near human experience by using NLP is the technology that will win this race in the long run. And this is more so especially for your vernacular medium, because whether we like it or not, customers in this country like to speak in their mother tongue and in the vernacular, and they're a lot more comfortable, especially outside metros. And I think this is one very important takeaway for all service providers in this country. Finally, of course, the days of multi-channel broken servicing architectures is over, in my opinion, with the customer becoming extremely intent and extremely demanding in terms of first call resolution, first contact resolution, and in many cases, if you are able to predict, through your hindsight, you create insight through your data, and you're able to predict and create foresight and give the customer what he wants before he asks for it, in a channel or through a channel and in a language of his choice. I think there is no reason why the customer will ever leave you as a service provider. So that being said, I end my little discourse in terms of how voice tech is changing the way we are doing business and what we plan to do with voice tech in the future to give our customers a fantastic experience. That's where I end, and I on what I've just talked about. So over to you guys. I mean, if you have any questions. So there is a chat box on the right hand side which says discuss. So So if you'd like to type stuff there, I'd be more than happy to take a look and answer. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. If I see somebody has asked a question. Okay, so this question is from Kaushik Roy, who actually asks, in your business, do you expect more people to contact you over voice or over text-based chat? In my opinion, Kaushik, voice is still the predominant medium because insurance is not a very easy to understand product, and people do tend to want to speak to a human being to get answers which are personalized and contextualized to them. So that while people do to send short coded SMSs or write quick queries on WhatsApp on a WhatsApp channel as well, I still think that people still use the callback facility a lot more in terms of I need some assistance or I need some information, please call me back. So your click to call still rules the roost. Okay, so this question is from Soumya. She asks, what is the best for insurance companies, IVR or assisted service representative? See, in my opinion, Soumya, the way to go is to move from IVR to assisted bot-based servicing. However, the IVR trees are rather complex, and to convert all of them into automated, so automated speech recognition. We are still some distance away. Maybe an English IVR, yes, can be converted into speech recognition, but vernacular IVRs, I still think there is way to go, in my opinion. Thank you, but thank you for that question. It's a good question in terms of the evolution of voice tech. Yeah, any other questions? I'll wait a couple of seconds before. Okay, so I think we are done here, and I'd like to thank you for your attention and for your questions, and I look forward to staying in touch with many of you. So thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you as an audience. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's right, Kayzad. Thank you very much for spending time with us this evening. There was a lot of participation and lots of questions. I think the audience really appreciated your knowledge and experience and insights. And we thank you very much for spending your evening with us. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Have a great evening. So we are going to slip into a very quick networking break. Yes, that's right. We're going to slip into a very quick networking break, and we will be back here in about 10 minutes' time. And we're going to hear from Brett Kinsella, the founder and CEO of VoiceBot.ai. And we're going to be talking about how India is now a top priority for the top tech companies in the world, like Amazon and Google. This is going to be one exciting conversation where it's involving the real big players of the industry, and this is something you do not want to miss. I'm looking forward to hearing what Brett has to say. I'm sure you would be looking forward to it as well. All of this and much more will be happening from 6:25 onwards. We will see you.